Yeah. Wait, should we record this? Because I saw this on my feed and I was going to leave a comment and I saw your comment on it. And then I
Yeah.
didn't even end up leaving my comment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay.
When you start your business, no one ever prepares you for what's in store. So finding someone else who just gets it is sometimes the thing that can keep you pushing towards those big vision board business goals.
We're turning our Zoom coffee chats into a weekly unfiltered podcast. You always wanted to record them and repurpose them for content anyways. And that's on being a social media manager.
I'm Jessica Sheehy.
And I'm Madeline Daigan. And this is
hashtag
managed. I think it's perfect.
I like it. I like it. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Hashtag Managed. I'm really excited to introduce today's guest to you all. Emma, welcome to the Hashtag Managed podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Of course. Thank you so much for your time today. And I know we're so eager to get to know you a little bit more, and we're going to talk about some really good things. But to kick us off, could you tell us a little bit more about you, how you got started in social media?
For sure. Yeah. Social media marketing was not the path that I thought I was going down, that I was supposed to go down by any means. So landing here was not unintentional, but definitely just not the path that I set out to really achieve. I actually, when I found social media marketing, I was in school getting my interior design degree. And so I was, had this vision for how my life would go. You go to school, you get certified, you land your dream job, you work in design, and you probably open your own business later on. And I ended up finding social media marketing in 2015 at an internship in college. And at that time, social media was not anywhere where it is today. Obviously, we've come a very long way. But at that time, what really piqued my interest was the opportunity that I saw on social and realizing that a lot of brands didn't see what I saw. I realized most people, A, weren't using it for their business, and B, didn't realize where this thing was going. That just really lit something in me because I was like looking around. I was like, guys, what are we doing? Everyone needs to be on this, doing it. And so that really inspired me to start literally just cold pitching brands and people at different companies, which ultimately led to our first few clients of 95 Media when it was just me. And I did end up landing my dream job in design. I worked in design while I built 95 Media for 5 years. And then mid-COVID, I was like, you know what? I really think we're onto something. Like, the world is changing, social media is changing, and I really need to go for this. I need to see what we can make of it. While that felt like the scariest thing in the entire world, as the world is crashing down, you're like, no, I'm going to quit my job. Like, let's just see what I can ride this out with. It has, of course, been the best decision I've ever made. And since then, we've helped hundreds of small businesses scale their online presence, bring in more sales. And it truly is that impact that we're able to make with 95 Media, our team, our services, that lights me up today and makes everything, every single day worth it.
Amazing. So
I love it. Yeah, I love that. You talked about so many things. I know we have a structure for how we have the show, but I'm like, God, I just want to ask Emma all these questions, but we'll get to it eventually. But how cool is it that every time, you talk to any entrepreneur, like, it's never one straight and narrow path. I mean, there are people who wake up and they're like, I'm born to be an entrepreneur, and they start off on that path and they go for it. Maybe they come from a family of entrepreneurship, but I think it's so cool to come from another industry, especially as a marketer. I think that brings such great insight, but that might just be a little insight into our conversation later with Emma.
Definitely.
Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of this interview, we like to kick it off with a few rapid-fire questions. So to kick us off, what is your favorite thing about being a marketer?
It really is the impact. Not to sound cheesy, but like the content is content at the end of the day. But when you watch a business just literally flourish in front of you because of the help that you're giving them, there is nothing more rewarding at all.
A celebrity you'd like to meet?
I would have to say Ryan Serhant, which is the real estate agent who got started on Bravo, but he's built this entire brokerage, and he's super inspiring. He does a lot of like motivational speaking. He's built so many different businesses, just very, very successful. And I mean, how do you even like categorize celebrities anymore? I feel like a celebrity is like an influencer, like a TV show. Like, I don't know what a celebrity is, but I don't like
No.
him.
I guess it's
No,
like, did they go from celebrity to influencer, or like influencer to celebrity? Like now
There's blurred lines.
Okay, and then you can't live without.
I can't live without, I would say, my air fryer. I can't. My oven drives me nuts. Like the air fryer, key to feeding myself, truly.
Okay, and I'm curious about this since, again, you've already mentioned kind of another career path, but in an alternate universe, what would your alternate universe job be?
I mean, it would be interior design. If the path had not led me to marketing, I was on that path. I was doing the thing, and I was really passionate about it too. I still love it. I ended up loving social media marketing just a tad bit more, and I felt like I needed to do it. So I would be interior design.
Yeah. Okay, and then your favorite brand.
I love what Lauren Bostic is doing with the Skinny Confidential. I started listening to him and her podcast in like 2017 maybe, and it's just been so cool to see what she's done with the brand, all the products she's creating and the innovation of those products. But not only that, how she translates that to her social media audience. I just think it's a really, really interesting case study to watch and to see what she's been doing over the past few years.
Yeah, I would agree. I think she's also a really great example, role model, whatever you want to call it, for someone who's really great at branding. We talk so much about branding. I obviously love the 95 Media Co branding. Like, there's just a big difference between really good branding and not. And I think, regardless if you listen to any of their podcasts or like do any, know anything about Dear Media, their product line is just really beautiful. And it's so seamless from product to her brand to podcast brand. I feel like it's like she needs a branding masterclass or something. Maybe
totally. It's seamless, but she does things so like differently. Some brands kind of get stuck in like the straight and narrow, and she's able to like find her way off the path but still bring it back, which I think is really a really cool element.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, I know we're going to talk a lot about all things marketing and social media, just given your background and experience. But first, I want to go a little bit more granular and talk about video content. This is something just pre-show. Everyone knows who listens to our show. We do a lot of research and just planning for these questions with our guests beforehand, before we just have these conversations. But you mentioned that there's a specific type of video content for each platform. And I believe from what we know about 95 Media Co., you guys have used a specific one to triple your own lead pool, which I feel like is a great topic for where we're sitting in 2025, just with the world and business and everything. But can you break this down for us? Like, what type of content works best for each platform and why?
Yeah, what a lot of brands do is have crossover between the content they're posting on multiple platforms. And I'm certainly not against doing that at all. But what I think is really important to recognize is that certain types of content will always outperform others on different platforms. The reason for that is because your audience is looking for different types of content and really to feel differently on each platform. We go to TikTok to just kind of relax, to turn off our brain, to just watch a bit longer form storytelling content, a bit more raw, real content over on TikTok. And that really would not hit the same over on Instagram, because no matter how much we all want to rebel against this idea that Instagram is curated and it is not nearly as authentic as TikTok, it's the truth. So you wouldn't post a 10-minute get ready with me on Instagram, but that would probably do really well for somebody over on TikTok. And then when you bring like LinkedIn into the game, that is an entirely different stratosphere as well. So I think there's elements that you can cross over between the platforms in your video, but it's so good to know like what will be your standout content on each of those platforms. So to get more granular, on TikTok, like I mentioned, a bit more long form while keeping it dialed in. You're not rambling, but you're dialing it in, and it's more like about you. So you have more freedom over on TikTok to infuse yourself into your brand, especially as a founder-led business, where you wouldn't necessarily do that sort of thing over on like an Instagram. On Instagram, you would really lean into sort of like the belief style content. In my what I believe is doing really well on Instagram is the type of content where you're painting the picture for your audience of what they can have if they purchase what you're selling. So whether that's a service or it's a product, you're letting them see what it could look like if they were already on the other side of that purchase. And in that way, you're shaping the belief rather than selling the offer. So you're saying, hey, look, like if you're like a social media manager, I'm not selling like 4 posts a week. What I'm actually selling is for you to never have to worry about what you're posting again, because someone else is handling that for you. So what would that look like? That would look like you being able to pick your kids up from school at 3 p.m. Or that would look like being able to take a month off of work in the summer to go on vacation with your family. Painting that picture makes a massive impact. And that works on Instagram or TikTok, but I really am seeing it a lot over on Instagram. And then LinkedIn, video is becoming huge on LinkedIn. They recently rolled out a video only feed that looks just like TikTok. And so that tells us that they want more video. They want more creators putting out video content on that platform. But on LinkedIn, it's very educational. It's very like face to cam, more professionally lit, recorded, good audio, really kind of buttoned up, which is not surprising because that's the entire platform. But if I could break it up like that, I would say those are kind of like the 3 unique types of content, video content for each of the platforms.
That was
Yeah.
such a great, I think, summary of. I know I just learned a lot more because, like you said, you can repurpose and you can almost like keep that same theme, but just switch it up for each platform. So
Yeah.
I guess our next question is, what mistake do you see brands making when when they try to repurpose one video across multiple platforms?
Ooh, I mean, so many. My like pet peeve of repurposing is when you literally take the video and you don't edit at all. Meaning, if you're going to repurpose the content, take the base video, like edit your base video in CapCut or InShot, like do it off the apps so that you can take that base edited file, upload it to Instagram, upload it to TikTok, and use those final editing tools for your audio, your text, any like transitions that you're going to have, like with the photo coming on the screen. If you're going to do that innately in the app so it looks like it's supposed to be there. If you're taking an Instagram font, you're putting it over on TikTok, not only does that look odd, because we're all smart, like consumers are a lot smarter than anyone's giving them credit for, but the algorithm isn't going to favor it in the same way either, because it knows that you didn't create it for it. You create it for a different app, and now it's going to kind of shadow ban it a tiny bit because it wants you creating content specifically for that unique platform. The worst thing, and I'm sure we've all seen it, is when you have like a watermark from a different app in a piece of content. So you have like the TikTok watermark on your Instagram video, and there's so many tools that you can use to remove that. You just create, like doing those final little bits to repurposing content really goes a long way.
Yeah. I'm even like one of those annoying people too, where if I see like a TikTok font on an Instagram reel, obviously no like watermark or anything like that, I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, what is this? There are, like you said, you can create it in a different app, and like you can obviously put fonts in Instagram reels. Like that is definitely a feature. Or two, I'm sure LinkedIn, because a LinkedIn video is something that I think I have the least experience with, and I'm sure our listeners as well, just since it's very new. But my understanding is LinkedIn, like you have to post like the final video there, right? Like there's no like in-app like editing tool like TikTok or like Instagram Reels, right?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I haven't really played around with it so much, but to my understanding, you do have to go in with your final edited video to post it to that platform.
Yeah, but to your point, like if that base video is in CapCut, for example, you could import like brand fonts or, something
Yeah.
that's really like clean for that LinkedIn video. So I think that's really great. And I think that's such a good conversation. I know for our, listeners who have their own business and are maybe marketing themselves, because I know we have those DIYers, then repurposing does not mean just copy and pasting from platform to another platform. Like there's some real strategy behind that. But also, I think that's a really great selling point for a social media manager, like marketing agency owner, to, get your clients to be on other platforms. And, everyone's kind of looking for a shortcut nowadays with like AI. And as a business owner, like, I get it. Like, we want to cut costs, we want to be really like, lean as a company, but I'm also a marketer. So that is the number one thing that our agency spends money on, because duh, we have to. We can't be hypocritical there. But, I think you can only cut corners so many ways. You can only have ChatGPT or AI create you so many different pieces of video. Like you have to have someone like intentionally driving that strategy, which I think you really brought home with that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I love AI as well, but there is definitely so far it can go right now. And it does require people. It requires us to like finesse it and make it beautiful. And I don't think that element is going away anytime soon.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I hope it's okay. And I'm going to throw in this curveball for this question, but we have been slowly asking this. We haven't been planning this on any of our podcast guest episodes, but it has been coming up so naturally in conversation that I feel like we should just probably put it in at this point as some sort of segment or something fun. But Emma, is there one way in particular that you are really loving when it comes to using AI, like for the work that you guys are doing or for your business or just anything in general?
It's so interesting you say that because I'm working with our operations, our project manager, and we're actually working on really integrating AI and ChatGPT, but also like ClickUp AI into a lot of our systems. Um, Something, when you talk to people about AI, there's kind of like two boats where people think like, oh, it's going to take all of our jobs. But I'm actually in the other boat where I really believe that AI is going to allow us to do our jobs better. And that's really what we're looking at it to do. So, how can we create better strategies, create better outlines that go beyond what we're able to see? I actually, I'm in this like group, and someone posted this prompt in the group the other day, and it was one of the best prompts I've ever seen. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I use it to kind of like strategize and think bigger about the company. And so, like in my ChatGPT, it knows a lot about the company, Art 95 Media. And so the prompt was essentially saying, based on everything you know about me and based on like this revenue number that we're looking to hit, what are my blind spots? What am I not seeing? What can we do better? What do we need to do to achieve this goal? Create KPIs, a game plan, a year by year like goal strategy. And it literally laid out things that I never would have seen for probably like 2 years. So I think in that way, it is really allowing everybody to see things that we are not able to see because we're so like in our day to day. And the way that we're really rolling out AI and within the company, and one way in particular, is to really support on the strategy side to get the ideas onto paper. We are still like manually creating everything and finessing the strategy and making sure that like anything the client has said to us offline is obviously like captured and integrated, because it just does not know everything, and that's totally fine. But if it can do 50% of the work so that you can output 50% faster or better, why would we not want to explore that? And that's really what we're looking at exploring, at how we can roll that out so that we can do a better job, we can serve our clients better, and they can see better results.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. What a great prompt too. I know you said you didn't have the, but I was like, whoa, that is great. What do you have? Like, okay, taking
I'm
notes over here.
Yeah.
Yep, literally, I'm like, tapping into ChatGPT later.
Do it. It's amazing.
And I love your perspective on it too, as well, Emma. And like you said, there's two sides to the AI story right now. Whether you're business owner, marketer, like people are either really love it or they really fear it. And I think it's just, with anything that is a big technology change that can definitely come. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Okay, I'll steer us back onto our, our track of our questions here before we get a little bit too far off when it comes to that. But okay, kind of switching gears a little bit, but still staying on the idea of strategy. When working with clients, how do you balance trend-driven content with a long-term video strategy that actually converts?
Yeah. So I look at trends, or just kind of my whole team and I look at trends as that really top of funnel content that's going to get the most reach. So when you look at your marketing funnel, the top of your funnel is the type of content that's going to get in front of the most people, bring in people into the fold, get new eyes on the company. And then as you bring them down, they're learning more about you, they're consuming different types of content until ultimately they book a sales call with you, they fill out an inquiry form, or they purchase your product. That's the bottom of your funnel. That's where you want to get people to go. But that's also the smallest amount of people who actually get there. So as marketers, it's really our job to increase the amount of eyes on your top of funnel content so that you have more people moving through your funnel at different stages at all times. When it comes to trending content, what we know is that the algorithm favors that content. Therefore, it's going to be shown to more people. When you think about trends, that's the type of content that you want to integrate like as often as makes sense for the brand so that you do have the maximum number of new eyes. Now, all of our clients are different, and I'm sure anyone listening and you guys as well, like not all clients brands are applicable to every like trend that happens. So it's really all about being discerning regarding, does this trend make sense for this brand? Because you're never going to jump on all of them, but you jump on the ones that make sense within the content calendar that you've outlined. So for us, I would say like 85% of the content is more like evergreen middle funnel content that really speaks to the offer, whether that's shifting beliefs or talking about the product or founder led content. And a smaller percentage, like around 15%, is really trend, just because we're so selective with the trends that we jump on. We really want to make sure that it creates a payoff for the brands that we're working with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think every marketer is always y- thinking about trends versus evergreen content, like in one path or another, where I think you mentioned just that beautiful ratio that it does need to be both, and you do have to consider the marketing funnel, which is one of my favorite buzzwords when it comes to marketing. I feel like anytime anyone's talking about, like top, like middle funnel, it's just there's so many different pieces that you have to consider, and it's like that. We often get asked, what is the true ROI or value that a social media manager brings to a company, and it's like knowing things like that is super important. Knowing what trends to apply to a brand or not, because that's too, again, not to beat a dead horse when it's down, but AI is only going to know so much. You can't just pop in a bunch of things into ChatGPT. You can train it, absolutely. I don't want people coming for me in the comments of these videos with no, you can actually use ChatGPT for that. But, you can't just be really focused on just trends, trends, trends. It's only going to take you so far. And like you said, for you, Emma, I love that your favorite thing about being a marketer is the impact. So, thinking about the strategy holistically, that's where you see that bigger impact in revenue, income, sales, and everything in between.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of ROI, what metrics are you looking at when determining if video content is converting into actual leads or sales?
Obviously, ROI is what everyone wants. However, I will say the question you said you hear a lot, which is like, what kind of guarantee do you have? What's the ROI of hiring a social media marketer? I do not give any guarantees. I'm very upfront with that. You can't guarantee anything, in my opinion. And what I've always seen is that if someone's telling you, you can achieve X, for sure, there's something else happening behind the scenes. And so for us, we don't make any guarantees, but we know the numbers to track and we know exactly what should be happening along the way. The numbers that we're tracking are what we call the conversion metrics, and they're quite different than what some people like to track and what are the attractive numbers to be looking at, which are the vanity metrics. And so the vanity metrics are your followers, your likes, the amount of views on your reel. But at the end of the day, those numbers don't mean anything. And as marketers, we know that. So the conversion metrics that are super important that actually show the ROI are, what types of conversations are you having? What does your DMs look like? Are you getting inquiries in your DMs? Are people replying to your story and asking you questions about what you've posted? Are they clicking the link in your stories? Are they going to the link in bio? How much has your website traffic increased from Instagram? What is your Shopify telling you? Like if you're a product brand, we literally pull Shopify reports for our product clients at this point because it's so critical, not only to see like where the sales are coming from, but also what's the increase in sales, etc. We had a product client come to us and their goal was to increase sales by 30% in 6 months. And we were able to achieve, they wanted to do an increase of 20% in 6 months. And we were able to achieve 30% growth in 5 months. But we never would have been able to do that if we weren't tracking it along the way, seeing the type of content that was doing well, leaning further into that, leaning away from the content that was underperforming so that we could really continuously drive, the growth that they were looking to achieve. And if your sales aren't growing, your ROI isn't there, then something's missing. But the truth is a lot of times I've found that the missing piece is often something that like the marketer needs from the client that we're unable to create, whether that's content or it's information. And that has really influenced how we've grown 95 Media in particular, because I'm sure you guys have seen, and a lot of your listeners have seen, that in the marketing space, content demands are growing every single day. It used to be enough to have like one photo shoot a year, and you could use that content for the entire 12 months and you were good to go. And that is just not the case anymore. But a lot of business owners still think that they're able to do that. And to solve for that, we actually released a service that that's our quarterly content shoots, where we will literally go to our clients. We fly out to them every quarter and we shoot 3 months of video content in 3 hours with them. So that way we don't need to bother them for the content. They don't need to feel overwhelmed. We have exactly what we need that we know is going to perform well. And we don't even offer management packages without that, because it has made such a difference in the growth that our clients are able to see while working with us. I think that as marketers, it's our job to identify the problems and identify like, okay, well, what's the cause for the ROI not lining up? And how can we solve for that in the next instance if we're not able to solve for it here? And that's really what I focus on as the founder.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. And I think that's like a really great permission slip to a lot of like our listeners who are marketers themselves, because I know just based off of like what we hear inside of our community with like what people are struggling with, they're always struggling with showcasing the ROI. And I think it's because there's that, that saying, quote, whatever, marketing is not sales. And while I agree, yes, that is true. In any well-structured organization, marketing and sales are two completely different departments. Now, that being said, in small businesses and startups, that those lines are blurred, and especially marketing is not sales, but marketing and sales go hand in hand. They are best friends at the conference table, and they both really are getting, from, audience and awareness to conversion in their, again, it's just marketing is doing their job, passing the baton to sales at whatever point of that sales journey. And then, yes, it's up to the sales team or, the e-commerce website or whatever that funnel looks like to like close the sale. But it's such a thing that I think so many marketers are afraid to look at that data and report on that data. But, you guys would have never, you set that goal for 20% increase over 6 months, and you knew that you crushed it within 5. So less of a time frame, and that it was crushed, and you have that like strategy and data to back that up. But I think so many people are so concerned with, well, what if I don't hit that goal? With, that is a big metric, even 20%, really, really big metric over 6 months. Seems like a long time, but 6 months is going to go by really quickly. And it's like, what are we going to do to back that up? So I think it's a good permission slip for people to don't be afraid to report on those metrics. And if you're not meeting goals, then maybe you're setting goals that are a little unattainable or don't really make sense for the strategy that is backing it. Or if you're consistently not hitting those goals, maybe you're not bad at goal setting. Maybe it's the strategy. Maybe it's what needs to be done, just needs to be shifted. So I love that you brought that up as well. Listen up, social media managers, freelancers, and online business bosses. If you're still out here trying to Google your way to success, it's time for an upgrade. The Hashtag Manage Collective is a free Facebook group where we ditch the fluff and get real about what actually works in social media management, community, coaching, and resources. Because your ideal clients don't just magically find you. We're a group of 20,000 plus social media managers, and it's absolutely free to join us. So, what are you waiting on? Join now at hashtagmanage.com/group. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you made it this far, I think we've officially become internet besties. You can always call into the hashtag hotline and say hello, leave a review, or ask your burning questions.
Make sure you follow, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening from. Subscribe to the Social Club newsletter for our weekly email, and shoot us a DM over at hashtag manage on Instagram, letting us know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode.